for selling my house after my kids planned to divide it while I was still alive? My name is Daisy. I am 58, a divorced mother of 2 grown children, and I live by myself now in a small condo with thin walls, quiet neighbors, assigned parking, and one stubborn houseplant I keep moving from window to window because I refuse to let it die. I have worked in payroll and office administration for most of my adult life. It is not glamorous work, but it is steady work. Steady was exactly what my family needed after my ex-husband decided parenting was something he would do when things settled down. Things never settled down. So I became the steady one. I remembered dentist appointments. I stayed up with fevers. I packed lunches when I was so tired I put peanut butter on the wrong side of the bread and had to start over. I filled out FAFSA forms, sat through parent-teacher conferences, learned how to stretch a grocery budget, and said we would figure it out so many times that my kids probably thought it was my natural response to every emergency. I did not think of myself as a bank. I thought of myself as their mother. My older daughter, Marissa, is 34. She is polished in a way I never was. She has nice shoes, neat hair, a soft voice, and a talent for making demands sound like responsible suggestions. She works in marketing and is married to Tessa. Tessa has always been kind to me, though a little careful, like she is constantly checking the temperature of a room before she speaks. My son Cole is 31. Cole is louder, warmer when he wants to be, and far more comfortable asking for help. He has had jobs, lost jobs, and started jobs he swore would be the perfect fit. Somehow, every rough patch came with a phone call that began with him asking me not to panic. For years I did not panic. I fixed things. When Marissa's financial aid fell short during her last year of college, I took money from the small savings account I had built one overtime hour at a time. When Cole's old car broke down and he needed something reliable for work, I co-signed the loan after he promised he would never miss a payment. When he did miss 2 payments, I covered them before my credit got dragged down with his. When Marissa and Tessa needed help with a security deposit because their previous landlord was being unreasonable, I wrote the check and told myself it was temporary. When Cole lost a job and had emergency dental work in the same month, I paid the dentist directly because I knew if I gave him cash, it would vanish into 10 other emergencies. There was also a small joint checking account I had opened years ago when the kids were younger. It was supposed to be for family emergencies. When they were in college, it helped with books, car insurance, prescriptions, and one very expensive tow from the side of the highway. I kept it open after they became adults because it seemed harmless. There was never much in it, just a few $100 here and there. It was a cushion. It was a way to help without making every little thing a serious conversation. First, they thanked me. Cole would say he would seriously pay me back. Marissa would thank me, hugging me with one arm while checking her phone with the other, saying she did not know what she would do without me. Somewhere along the way, the thank yous changed. They got shorter. Then they got implied. Then they disappeared completely. Cole stopped asking if I could help and started saying he needed me to move some money. Marissa stopped asking if I would be comfortable and started saying it made sense for the family. I noticed it, but I made excuses. They were stressed. Everybody was stressed. Rent was high. Groceries were expensive. Cars broke down. Jobs were unstable. I knew how hard adulthood could be. I also knew I had spent their childhood trying to make sure they never felt abandoned. When they leaned on me, even too heavily, some old part of me mistook it for proof that I mattered. Then my house became a topic. The house was not fancy. It had a narrow kitchen, a back deck that needed staining every other year, a garage with boxes I should have cleaned out a decade ago, and one upstairs bathroom with a sink that made a knocking noise if you turned the hot water on too fast. But it was mine. I bought it after the divorce with a mortgage that scared me every month for the first 10 years. I painted the bedrooms myself. I planted the hydrangeas out front. I stood in that kitchen and signed school forms, wrapped Christmas presents, paid bills, cried quietly, and kept going. To Marissa and Cole, apparently it was just equity. The first time they said it out loud was at a casual family dinner a few months before my 60th birthday. I had made baked chicken, salad from a bag, and those little dinner rolls Marissa likes even though she pretends she does not eat white bread. Aunt Linda, my older sister, was there too. Linda is 64, sharp-eyed, and usually the first person to tell me I am being too soft. She has a way of avoiding conflict in the moment and calling me later to say everything she should have said at the table. Cole leaned back in his chair, looked around my dining room and said I really did not need all this house anymore. I laughed a little because I thought he was teasing. I told him I did not need his commentary on my square footage either, but there we were. He grinned, but Marissa did not. Marissa agreed with him. She pointed out that the stairs alone were going to be an issue eventually. I reminded her that I was 58, not 108. She quickly clarified that nobody was saying I was old. She claimed they were just saying it might be smart to think ahead while the market was still strong. Tessa looked down at her plate. Aunt Linda gave a little awkward chuckle and said I had plenty of time to decide what I wanted. Marissa smiled at her like she had been waiting for the word once, so she could step around it. She agreed but added that sometimes waiting too long makes things harder for everyone. Everyone. That was the word that landed wrong. I put my fork down and asked if they were asking me if I wanted to sell. Marissa blinked and repeated that they were just saying it made sense. Cole added that I was sitting on money I did not even use. The table went quiet for half a second. Then Linda asked if anyone wanted more salad. This is what my family does when someone says something uncomfortable, and nobody wants to admit it happened. I let it pass that night. It was not because it did not bother me, but because I wanted to see whether it was just a clumsy conversation or the beginning of something. It was the beginning. A week later, Marissa texted me a condo listing. She wrote that it was cute on the first floor, required less maintenance, and could be perfect for me. I stared at it on my phone while standing in line at the grocery store. It was a beige box of a place with a monthly homeowner association fee that made my eyelid twitch. I wrote back that I was not looking. She replied almost instantly, saying she was just keeping options open. Then came another listing. Then another. Cole started bringing up property taxes every time he came over. One Saturday, while helping himself to coffee from my kitchen, he asked if I knew what houses around here were going for. He had stopped by to borrow my ladder, which he returned 3 weeks later with paint on it. I told him I had a general idea. He suggested I could sell, buy something smaller outright and still have a lot left. I asked him what the extra money would be for. He shrugged too casually and listed things like life, family, and helping everybody get stable. I reminded him that I thought downsizing was about less stress for me. He agreed but noted it could also help them, and that was not a bad thing. There it was again. Help us. Marissa dressed it up better. She used words like practical, transition, and long-term plan. She said she worried about me alone in the house. She said the yard was too much. She said repairs were expensive. She said she did not want me financially stretched in retirement. But somehow, every conversation circled back to how much money would be freed up. One evening, she called while I was sorting old home insurance files at the kitchen table. I had my grocery store reading glasses on. They were the ones with a tiny scratch in the left lens. Using her calm voice, Marissa told me that nobody was trying to take anything from me. She said they were trying to make sure this was handled responsibly. I asked her what she meant by that. She listed the house, my retirement, and the future. I asked if she meant my future. She corrected me, saying it was our family's future. I looked around my kitchen at the chipped mug by the sink, the magnet from Cole's third-grade field trip still on the refrigerator, and the little stack of property tax statements I had paid by myself for years. I told her plainly that my retirement was not a group project. She sighed and accused me of making things emotional when she was trying to be practical. That was the first time I felt something colder than hurt. It was not anger exactly. It was maybe clarity. It felt like a small light turning on in a room I had been walking through in the dark. The real shift came at a backyard cookout at my house in early summer. It was not a big event. We had burgers, hot dogs, and a bowl of potato salad Aunt Linda brought. Cole was complaining that my grill had hot spots, acting like I had personally designed it to spoil his food. At some point, phones got mixed up on the patio table. Mine and Cole's were both in black cases. His buzzed near my elbow, and I picked it up without thinking. I saw the screen just long enough to read the preview. The text from Marissa said not to let Mom promise Aunt Linda anything until they got the house number. I froze. Cole came up beside me and snatched the phone much faster than necessary. He stated it was his. I told him I had noticed. His face changed for a second. It was not guilt exactly. It was more like irritation that I had seen something I was not supposed to see. I did not confront him. I did not ask what the house number meant. I set my own phone down. walked inside, and pretended to check the oven even though nothing was in it. From the kitchen window, I watched Marissa laugh at something Tessa said. Cole stood beside the grill, typing with both thumbs. My hands were shaking, so I ran them under cold water. 2 days later, I got an email notification while eating toast at that same kitchen table. Marissa had requested access to the family documents folder, specifically the house, mortgage, and tax files. That folder was in an old shared family cloud account. Years ago, it held school forms, car insurance papers, tax documents for student aid, emergency contacts, scanned identification cards, and anything the kids needed when they were away at college. I had forgotten some of the house files were still there, like old closing documents, property tax statements, mortgage paperwork, and insurance declarations. I sat there staring at the request while my toast went cold. For the first time, I did not feel sad. I felt awake. They were not suggesting. They were planning. That afternoon, I met Denise for coffee. Denise is a former coworker, and the kind of friend who listens quietly until she has collected enough evidence to hit you with one sentence you cannot dodge. She has watched me cover for Marissa and Cole for years. She has also watched me pretend I was fine after every situation drained whatever cushion I had managed to build. I told her about the dinner comments, the condo listings, Cole's remarks about wasted equity, the message preview, and Marissa's access request. Denise did not interrupt. She just stirred her coffee until I finished. Then she looked at me and said they were not planning for my future. They were shopping through it. I looked down at my hands and reminded her that they were my kids. She acknowledged that. I told her I did not want to be unkind. She replied that protecting my retirement was not an unkindness. I admitted I kept thinking maybe I caused this by helping too much. Denise leaned back and gave me the look she used to give employees who claimed the payroll system had magically lost their timesheets. She said maybe I did help too much, but that did not mean I owed them the rest. I cried in my car after that. It was not loud, dramatic crying. It was just tired crying. It is the kind where you sit in the driver's seat with the air conditioning running and wipe your face with fast food napkins from the glove compartment. Then I called Grant. Grant is an estate attorney I knew from a community volunteer board years earlier. He is calm, practical, and blunt in a way that would be rude if it were not so useful. His office had beige walls, framed certificates, and a candy dish full of peppermints that looked untouched since 2019. I brought a folder with everything I could find. It included mortgage statements, property tax bills, insurance papers, the old joint checking account information, Cole's auto loan documents, and copies of beneficiary forms I had not looked at in years. Grant read through them with a yellow legal pad beside him. After a while, he looked up and said my children could be disappointed, but that did not make them legally involved. I told him I knew that. He asked if I really did. I did not answer. He tapped the papers and pointed out that I had treated financial access like affection, and those were not the same thing. That one stung because it was true. He walked me through what I could and could not do. I could not magically erase every obligation overnight. If I had co-signed something active, there were legal steps and lender rules. But I could refuse new guarantees. I could remove document access. I could change passwords. I could close accounts I controlled. I could update beneficiaries. I could revise my estate plan. I could create a trust structure that protected my assets and made sure nobody could treat my retirement money like a family cash drawer. He also found an old emergency credit line I had forgotten still had my name attached as backup. Cole had not used it recently, but the fact that it existed made my stomach turn. Grant slid the paper toward me. He told me I was allowed to love my children without leaving the vault open. I almost laughed because vault was generous. My finances were not some grand fortune. I was not wealthy. I had a house with equity because I had paid a mortgage for decades. I had retirement savings because I had lived carefully. I had a few accounts, a used car, and a future I was trying not to spend before I got there. But to Marissa and Cole, it had become a resource. For the next several weeks, I moved quietly. I did not block anyone. I did not raise my voice. I just stopped leaving doors unlocked. I removed Marissa and Cole from the shared cloud folders and downloaded the records I needed into a private account. I changed passwords on my email, banking, insurance, retirement, and utility accounts. I closed the joint emergency checking account after transferring my portion into my personal account. There was only a small amount in it, but closing it felt like shutting a window during a storm. Cole called the same day. He asked if something happened to the emergency account. I told him I closed it. He asked why. I explained that my accounts needed to be separate now. He argued that it was for family emergencies. I reminded him that he was 31. There was silence followed by a sharp laugh. He expressed his disbelief. I told him I was not discussing it further. He accused me of acting strangely about money lately. I corrected him, saying I was simply being clear. He hung up. Marissa's response came by text. She asked why she could not access the documents folder anymore. I replied that I had removed access because my personal financial documents were private. She said that seemed unnecessary. I replied that requesting my mortgage paperwork without asking me also seemed unnecessary. She did not answer for 3 hours. Then she texted that we needed to have a real family conversation soon. I wrote back that we could have a conversation, but my accounts would not be part of it. There were no heart emojis after that. Meanwhile, I did the thing they had been pressuring me to do, but not for the reasons they wanted. I sold the house. It was not overnight, and it was not reckless. I had already been thinking about downsizing in a quiet corner of my mind for a couple of years. The stairs really did get annoying when I carried laundry. The yard really was too much in August. The house did need repairs I did not want to manage alone. But I wanted the choice to be mine. I wanted to move because it protected my peace and retirement, not because my adult children had decided my home was an early inheritance with plumbing. Grant connected me with a real estate agent he trusted. I got the house cleaned, fixed the worst of the little issues, and accepted a clean offer faster than I expected. The closing happened 1 week before my 60th birthday dinner. Denise helped me pack kitchen items into liquor store boxes because moving boxes were expensive. As she pointed out, cardboard is cardboard if it holds the plates. On the last night in the house, I stood in the empty dining room where we had celebrated birthdays, debated over homework, opened college acceptance letters, and had the first conversation about my supposedly wasted equity. Without furniture, the room echoed. The rectangle on the wall where a picture had hung for 15 years looked pale compared to the paint around it. Denise came in carrying a roll of packing tape. She asked if I was okay. I looked around and swallowed hard. I told her I thought I was grieving the person I was in that house, not the house itself. She nodded and said that made sense. I admitted I wanted them to remember what I did there. She assured me they remembered, but they just got comfortable benefiting from it. My condo was not impressive, but it was mine in a new way. It was smaller, quieter, and easier. It had assigned parking, a balcony just big enough for 2 chairs, one elevator that made a grinding noise like it was reconsidering its career, and neighbors who said hello but did not pry. I put my stubborn houseplant near the balcony door. It immediately dropped 1 leaf just to be dramatic. The proceeds from the house went exactly where Grant and my financial advisor told me they should go. They went into retirement investments, protected accounts, and the revised estate plan. The trust documents were signed. Beneficiaries were updated. Access was removed. My children were not cut out of my life, but they were no longer positioned to benefit from treating me like a savings account. I did not tell Marissa or Cole about the sale. That may sound secretive, but by then I understood something important. Every private conversation with them became a negotiation I had not agreed to enter. If I said I was thinking about selling, they would argue about numbers. If I said I had an offer, they would try to delay or influence it. If I said the money was going into retirement, they would accuse me of being selfish before the ink was dry. So I let the ink dry first. My 60th birthday dinner was planned in the family group chat. Previously, this chat had been used for recipes, holiday schedules, photos of Linda's dog, and passive-aggressive comments about who never brought dessert. Marissa suggested a busy restaurant with a long table in the back room. She texted that we should make it special. Cole replied that it was a big milestone, meaning it was time for big conversations, adding a laughing remark. Nobody reacted to that except Aunt Linda, who sent a thumbs up and then privately texted me to ask what he meant by big conversations. I wrote back that I had a feeling we would find out. The night of the dinner, I wore navy slacks, a cream blouse, and the small silver earrings I bought myself after my divorce was finalized. I arrived with an envelope in my purse. Inside were copies of a few documents Grant said I could show if needed. I did not bring the whole estate plan or account numbers. It was just enough proof to end any claim that I was bluffing. The restaurant was loud when I walked in. Water glasses clinked. Servers moved fast between tables. Someone nearby was singing Happy Birthday completely off-key. Our family table had bread baskets, folded napkins, and a centerpiece that looked like the restaurant had reused it since Easter. Marissa stood up to hug me first. She wished me a happy birthday brightly. It was a little too bright. I thanked her. Cole hugged me with one arm, remarking that turning 60 was crazy. I reminded him that I was still 58 for a few more minutes if he kept talking like that. He laughed, but his eyes flicked toward Marissa. Tessa squeezed my hand when she hugged me and told me I looked nice. I told her she looked nice too. She looked tired. It was not physical exhaustion exactly, but she looked like she had been holding her breath for a long time. Aunt Linda arrived with a gift bag and immediately leaned close to ask if I was all right. I said I was fine. She noted that my tone meant I was either fine or about to make the evening very uncomfortable for someone. I smiled and said it could be both. She blinked at me, then sat down. Dinner started normally enough. People asked about work. Linda complained about her neighbor's tree dropping branches into her yard. Cole ordered the most expensive steak on the menu and joked that birthdays were for celebrating. Marissa kept checking her phone under the table. Twice I caught her whispering to Cole. Once I heard him say tonight was going to be good for everyone. I took a sip of water and said that was certainly one way to put it. He did not hear me. After the plates were cleared, the server brought out a small cake with one candle. Marissa had apparently decided 60 candles were a fire hazard. Then Marissa tapped her glass with her fork. The little clinking sound cut through the table conversation. She announced she wanted to say something. I folded my hands in my lap. She smiled at me, then at everyone else. I could see the marketing professional slide into place with a warm expression, a gentle voice, and careful words. She started by saying that I had always taken care of them and that everyone knew that. She added that I had worked hard my entire life and now deserved less stress, more freedom, and a practical, peaceful future. Aunt Linda looked at me. Marissa continued, saying that part of loving someone is helping them make smart choices, even when those choices are emotional. She mentioned that the house had been a wonderful place for our family, but was a lot for one person. She concluded that as I transitioned into the next chapter, it was important to support a plan that made sense long-term. Tessa's mouth tightened. Marissa was not looking at me anymore. She was looking around the table, gathering agreement. Cole jumped in right on cue. He agreed, saying it was better to handle the house now rather than wait until things got complicated later. The breadbasket stopped moving. Someone's fork paused halfway to their mouth. I stayed still. Cole kept going. He assured me nobody was saying I did not get a say, but that it affected all of them. Aunt Linda muttered under her breath that there it was. Marissa shot him a warning look, but it was too late. I looked at my children. I did not look at the relatives or at Tessa. I just looked at Marissa and Cole. I asked if they were finished. Marissa gave a small nervous laugh and said this was meant to be supportive. I asked again if they were finished. Cole leaned back and said if I wanted to make it awkward, we could. I told him I did not. I stood up. My knees felt strange. They were not weak, just deeply aware. The room around us continued with its restaurant noise, but our table went quiet enough that I could hear the server behind me decide not to ask about coffee. I thanked them all for coming. I said I appreciated the dinner and the cake. I added that I especially appreciated Marissa and Cole making something clear in front of everyone that they had been trying to dress up in private for months. Marissa's face changed as she said my name. I held up one hand and told her she had already had her toast. Cole's jaw tightened. I opened my purse and took out the envelope, but I did not hand it to anyone. I told them they were making plans for a house that no longer belonged to me. For a second, nobody moved. Marissa frowned and asked what I meant. I told them the house had sold last week. Cole sat forward and said that was not funny. I assured him it was not a joke. Marissa's voice went thin as she asked if I had sold the house without telling them. I confirmed I had. Cole started to say that I could not just do that. I told him I could, and I did. The silence after that was not dramatic. Nobody gasped. Nobody clapped. This was real life, not a courtroom scene on television. People looked down at their plates. Aunt Linda slowly set her napkin beside her water glass. Tessa closed her eyes for 1 second. Marissa tried to recover first. She said it was a huge decision and we should have discussed it as a family. I disagreed. I told her they wanted to discuss my property as a family, but that did not make it a family decision. Cole's voice rose as he asked where the money was. And there it was, clean and undeniable. Marissa snapped his name in warning. But everyone had heard him. I looked at him for a moment. I did not feel the need to fill the silence for him. I stated calmly that the proceeds were in my retirement accounts and protected through my estate plan. I told them my beneficiaries had been updated, my documents were private, and my accounts were mine alone. Marissa's cheeks went red, and she accused me of embarrassing them. I told her I had simply let her finish her speech. Cole pushed his chair back hard enough that the legs scraped the floor. A server glanced over and wisely turned away. He accused me of choosing money over my kids. I shook my head and told him I was choosing not to be taken advantage of. He argued that it was not fair, reminding me that I had helped them before and questioning why I was now acting like we were strangers. I told him I helped them because I loved them. I explained that they had started treating that help like an automatic bank withdrawal. Marissa lowered her voice, trying to regain control. She insisted nobody was trying to take anything from me, and that they were just trying to prevent confusion later. I pointed out that they were not planning with me, they were planning around me. Tessa looked at Marissa then, and something passed between them that I could not read yet. I continued because if I stopped, they would pull me into an endless argument. I told them I was not punishing them for needing help, but rather protecting myself from being drained entirely. I made it clear that from now on, I was not co-signing loans, providing deposits, opening accounts, sharing financial documents, or discussing my retirement with either of them. Cole let out a bitter laugh and sarcastically wished me a happy birthday. I told him it truly was. Marissa stood up, then seemed to realize leaving would make her look worse, so she sat back down. She muttered that this could have been handled privately. I reminded her that it became public when she toasted my birthday with a financial plan I had never agreed to. Aunt Linda finally spoke, softly but clearly, agreeing that I was right. Marissa turned to her, claiming she did not understand. Linda's mouth tightened, and she replied that she understood enough. The rest of dinner ended in pieces. Cole left before the check came, throwing cash on the table that did not cover his steak. Marissa stayed stiff and furious, whispering with Tessa. A cousin pretended to study the dessert menu like it contained state secrets. The server brought the check with the gentle caution of someone approaching an unpredictable situation. Aunt Linda asked me quietly if I needed a ride. I told her I had driven. She said she knew, but she just did not want me walking out alone. That almost broke my heart. But I did walk out alone, and it felt better than I expected. The family group chat erupted before I even got home. Marissa wrote that I made this public when it could have been handled privately. I parked in my assigned spot at the condo, sat under the yellow parking lot light, and replied exactly what I had said at the table. It became public when she toasted my birthday with a financial plan I never agreed to. Cole texted, asking if I was really choosing money over my kids. I replied that I was choosing not to be used by them. Marissa texted that I was twisting things and they were just concerned about me. I typed back that concern asks what I want while entitlement decides what I should do and asks where the money is. Then I muted the chat. The next morning I watered my houseplant, made coffee and checked my email. There were no apologies from my children. There were, however, 4 missed calls from Cole and 1 voicemail. His voice was tense. He told me to call him back, explaining that the bank needed updated information, and that I was apparently no longer listed the way I was before. He said he did not know what I did, but it was a serious situation. I listened twice, not because I enjoyed it, but because I needed to hear the truth inside it. He was not asking if I was okay after the dinner. He was not sorry for discussing my house in public. He was panicking because a financial door he expected to use had been firmly locked. Later that day he called again. I answered because avoiding him would only drag it out. He asked if I understood what I had done before even saying hello. I told him yes, I had stopped signing my name under his choices. He argued that he had an application in process. I told him I knew. He sounded surprised that I knew. I explained that I knew he was counting on financial backing from me without even asking. He stumbled over his words, saying it was not like he was taking things without asking. I reminded him I did not say he was. He asked why I was acting this way. I told him my credit, my retirement, and my accounts were not his backup plans. He went quiet. Then he said he thought I was his mom. That one hurt because he knew it would. I told him I was, and that was exactly why I should have taught him this sooner. He hung up. 2 days later, Marissa sent a long text that looked like it had been carefully drafted, edited, and reviewed for tone. She wrote that emotions got high at dinner. She said she understood I felt protective of my independence, but my decision blindsided them and damaged trust. She explained that she and Tessa were under pressure, and she was trying to think practically. She hoped we could meet with a neutral third party and discuss a fair path forward. A fair path forward. I read it while sitting on my balcony, listening to the elevator grind down the hall. I wrote back that I was willing to meet for a family conversation about our relationship. I clarified that I was not willing to discuss my assets, accounts, house proceeds, estate plan, or retirement. Those topics were closed. She replied that leaving those out did not make for a real conversation. I wrote that it was the only one I was offering. She did not respond. Aunt Linda called me that evening. She admitted she had thought they were just being clumsy and did not realize they were crossing a line. I looked at the houseplant by the balcony door. It had stopped dropping leaves, which I chose to interpret as moral support. I told her I had not realized it either, not for a long time. She said she should have spoken up earlier. I reminded her that she laughed because it was awkward and we all did. She firmly stated she was not laughing anymore. Her voice cracked a little, and that did more for me than any dramatic defense at the restaurant would have. Linda did not try to take over. She did not tell me what to do. She just said she was proud of me, and if they started telling people I had abandoned them, I should send them to her. I smiled for the first time that day and warned her to be careful since she hated phone calls. She replied that she hated nonsense even more. The most unexpected message came from Tessa. She asked if she could call me privately. I almost said no because I did not want to be pulled back into Marissa's version of events. But Tessa had never asked me for money, never pressured me, and never treated my house like a pie chart. So I answered. Her voice was quiet. She simply said she was sorry. I sat down at my small kitchen table. It only fit 2 chairs now, which I had found strangely comforting. I asked her what exactly she was apologizing for. She said she was sorry for not saying something sooner. I waited. She took a breath and explained that Marissa had been hiding how bad some of their bills were, mostly credit cards and personal loans. She said she knew Marissa was stressed but did not know she and Cole were talking about my house like that until recently. She admitted that once she knew, she still did not stop it. I told her that was between her and Marissa. She agreed, but added that she sat there at dinner and let Marissa make it sound like genuine concern. I told her she looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. A small sad laugh came through the phone. She said that was accurate. I leaned back and told her I appreciated the apology, but I was not stepping back into the middle of their financial stress. She assured me she was not asking me to. I said good. She mentioned Marissa was angry. I said I knew. She added that Marissa felt humiliated. I replied that she should. There was a pause. Tessa said she did not think Marissa expected me to actually choose myself. I looked around my condo. I saw the little kitchen, the cheap lamp, the stack of books I had not unpacked yet, and the quiet space. I told her I had not expected to either. In the weeks that followed, the consequences were not explosive. They were ordinary, which somehow made them more satisfying. Cole's bank application was denied without the financial support he thought he could quietly use. He left 2 more angry voicemails, both stating he hoped I was happy. This told me he still thought my peace was something I had taken from him. I did not call the bank. I did not write a letter. I did not fix it. Marissa stopped posting cheerful family photos for a while. I heard from Linda that a few relatives had asked her what really happened at the birthday dinner. Marissa had tried to claim I was confused about everyone's intentions. Unfortunately for her, too many people had heard Cole ask where the money was. That sentence followed them around longer than anything I ever said. Tessa and I exchanged a few careful texts. It was nothing dramatic. She did not become my secret ally or my messenger. She simply apologized, then handled her own marriage. I respected that. Marissa eventually asked to meet for lunch. I agreed with one condition. I told her on the phone that there could be no financial topics. She sighed. I repeated that it was the condition. She finally agreed. At lunch she looked tired and less polished. She stirred her iced tea with a straw and avoided my eyes for the first 10 minutes. She finally said she felt betrayed. I told her I felt the same way. She claimed she was trying to plan. I reminded her she was planning for money that was not hers. Her mouth tightened and she said I made it sound ugly. I pointed out that it was ugly before I even named it. She looked away. For a moment I saw the little girl she had been. She was the one who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms and ask me if the roof was strong enough. My instinct was to soften, to rescue, and to give her a way out that cost her nothing. Instead, I took a sip of water and waited. Very quietly, she admitted they were facing serious financial trouble. I told her I was sorry to hear that. She said I did not even know the extent of it. I replied that I knew enough to know I could not be the solution. Her eyes filled with tears and I hated that it still hurt me to see. Boundaries do not turn a person to stone. They just keep you from sacrificing yourself on command. She said she did not know what to do. I suggested she could talk to a financial counselor, make a plan with Tessa, call her lenders, sell things, or change her lifestyle. I told her she could do what I did for 30 years and make hard choices with her own money. She called that cold. I disagreed. I told her it was simply adulthood. She did not like that. She left lunch early, claiming she had a meeting. But she paid for her own salad, which I considered progress. Cole took longer. For a while, he sent texts that were half guilt and half accusation. He texted that it must be nice to just walk away from people. I did not respond. He texted that he guessed family only mattered when it was convenient. I did not respond. He texted that I had really changed. To that one I simply wrote yes. Then I put the phone down and went for a walk around the condo complex. The sidewalks were uneven. Someone had wind chimes on a balcony. A man in building C nodded at me every evening like we had an appointment to acknowledge each other but never speak. I found that peaceful. The hardest part was not losing the house. It was losing the version of motherhood where being needed meant being loved. I had worn that role for so long that I did not know what to do with the quiet. During the first month in the condo, I kept expecting a crisis to walk through the door. I waited for a car problem, a rent problem, or a bill due just until Friday. When nothing came, I felt guilty. Then I felt relieved. Then I felt guilty for feeling relieved. Denise told me that was normal. She said I had spent decades being the emergency exit, so of course peace felt suspicious. She came over one Saturday with muffins and sat on my balcony, while the elevator groaned in the hallway. She commented that the place was cute. I told her it was small. She replied that small was not a crime. I pointed out that the kitchen had exactly 3 drawers. She joked that it meant I could only own 3 drawers worth of nonsense. I laughed harder than the joke deserved. Over time, the condo started feeling less like a retreat and more like a home. I bought a small bookshelf. I learned which neighbor had the loud dog and which one always held the elevator. I put a chair by the balcony door and drank coffee there in the mornings. I checked my retirement account without a knot in my stomach. I made dinner for one without feeling like the empty chairs were judging me. Marissa and Cole are still my children. I did not stop loving them, and I did not erase them from my life. But I changed the terms of access. They can call me. They can visit if they are respectful. They can tell me about their lives. They can ask for advice. They can even be angry, though I do not promise to stand there and absorb it. What they cannot do is use love as a tool for leverage. My retirement is not a family account. My home was not an advance payment. My sacrifices were not a contract requiring me to keep giving until there was nothing left. A few mornings ago, I watered the stubborn plant and noticed a new leaf coming in. It was small and bright green. I stood there longer than necessary, holding the watering can, feeling a little ridiculous for being proud of it. Then I made coffee, opened the balcony door, and sat in the quiet. For years I mistook access for love. Now I know love can knock politely. Entitlement simply tries the handle. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.